8:42 now here on WCNC Plus. It is the morning after. We are tracking the surprises at the ballot box. After years of debate, voters in Mecklenburg County approved a transit tax, and Republicans lost a longtime seat on Charlotte City Council.
Michael Bitzer, professor of politics over at Catawba College. He joins us now live this morning. Professor, good to talk to you again.
Good to be with you.
So the transit tax passed 52% to 48%, about 8,000 votes between the two sides. Any surprises there?
You know, I looked at the electoral map, based on precincts, and it's a weird dynamic. I've never seen Mecklenburg County kind of divide the way it did. In the northern part, basically a vertical split between that region. And then you also saw it kind of in the southern half as well. And so I think certainly it benefited the proponents of the referendum, certainly benefited from a very good night for Democrats, but the total was much closer than I had expected it to be.
So let's talk about Charlotte City Council now, because after those close attempts, South Park finally went Democratic. We're talking about District 6, of course. It's been represented by Republicans for decades. What's changed?
Well, the overall city has changed, and Charlotte has become much like other North Carolina urban centers, cities. They have moved Democratic dominance. I mean, if you take the presidential vote from just a year ago, Charlotte voted basically 60-40 for Kamala Harris. And in that particular district, the 6th city council district, that also voted nearly 60-40 for Harris. And it was just a matter of time before that district flipped. But I think the nationalization effect that we saw very evident across the country last night played a role at the grassroots level. The next one to fall probably is going to be District 7, Ed Driggs' district. If Democrats decide to put up a candidate against him in the next municipal election, that could be the next domino to fall.
Interesting that you said that, because now Democrats, they actually have 10 Democrats, only 1 Republican on council. Does this change how council operates?
Well, I think certainly it's been Democratic dominated for some time. The mayor won, I believe, with 70% of the vote. So I don't think anything will necessarily change procedurally, but Republicans are really struggling, much like Democrats are struggling in rural North Carolina. Republicans are completely struggling in the urban areas, and Charlotte is one of those. And if you go into a kind of one-party dominated urban area, there are issues that oftentimes, come to play. Voices don't get heard about public policy issues. It'll be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out into the future for the city of Charlotte.
To that point, I saw former Governor Pat McCrory. He was on NBC yesterday speaking with Hallie Jackson, and he was saying 10 Democrats and 1 Republican doesn't represent the city of Charlotte. And he compared it to the newly redrawn congressional districts in the state, which would create 11 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Many say that does not represent the state of North Carolina. Do you see that as even if it's not exactly equal, a fair comparison?
Certainly where you draw the lines for a district, whether it's a city council district or a congressional district, drawing those lines matter. But North Carolina has very much adopted the national phenomenon. We have geographically sorted ourselves, and we are polarizing ourselves based on geography. If Republicans want to win in Charlotte, they need more Republicans in the community. Right now, registered Republicans are 3rd within the registered voter pool of the city of Charlotte. So that kind of dynamic where Democrats have concentrated themselves in urban areas, that is to their detriment when it comes to drawing congressional lines. So each party suffers from this geographic polarization that the United States is undergoing, and North Carolina is just a case study of.
That's right. Certainly not unique to just our area. So let's talk about the shutdown because it lingers on. This is now day 36. A lot of families losing SNAP benefits. A new Catawba College poll, YouGov poll, found that a lot of folks here in North Carolina are actually blaming Republicans. Break down what you found in this poll.
Yeah, if you take both congressional Republicans and the president, combine their numbers, 40% of North Carolinians, a plurality, blame the Republicans in D.C. for the shutdown. A little over a quarter blame Democrats, and about a quarter blame both sides. So I think this national narrative of who is to blame is really starting to shift towards Republicans. This will be interesting to watch in comparison and in conjunction with yesterday's election results. Does that potentially send a signal to Republicans that, hey, we need to do something about this and get this off the plate? Or is particularly the president just going to double down and say, I'm not going to reopen the government until I get some concessions from Democrats? I'm not sure yesterday's election results across the country give Republicans enough ammunition to basically dig their heels into the dirt over this issue.
Just speaking of that, do you feel like there are any what's the term I'm looking for? Any like really takeaways that either party can really stick a pin in their cap with?
Well, I think for Democrats, it was a great night. You cannot look at, our neighbor to the north, Virginia, and look at 130 counties and cities, and 126 of them shifted more Democratic than they were a year ago in the 2024 election. So this nationalization of our electoral politics has really, to me, kind of solidified on 2026's midterm election to be a referendum on Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And this is simply just a classic midterm election dynamic that we're going to see play out. The question is, how big is that Democratic potential wave into next year? Can the momentum and the energy from this year's elections translate across the country? And does it keep up for another year or so? Certainly, I think Democrats are going to be buoyed by this. A lot of Republicans, even with newly drawn redistricted districts, may be looking at these maps and saying, do we have enough of an insurance policy to buy ourselves out of a potential Democratic wave? We'll just have to kind of look and see what the trend lines look like over the next year.
I hope we have time for one more question. I want to ask you about the turnout. In Mecklenburg County, it was just under 22%. We know these are off-year elections. Are you surprised by that turnout?
I think that was in the upper range of what I was expecting. I think, looking back 2 years ago, they were in the mid-teens. I think, certainly anything above 20%, while abysmal, I will say, for an odd year election, really does show that there was a lot of energy. I point to the City Council District 6 race. The Democrat 2 years ago got about 11,000. This year, the Democrat added about 5,000 more votes. That's huge in terms of that kind of dynamic in a very localized race. It certainly shows that Democrats are energized and mobilized and have a grassroots energy behind them going into 2026.
You had a few tight races, and of course you had the transit tax. So I think people care about some of these things. Michael Bitzer, professor of politics there at Catawba College. Professor, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We're back after this right here on WCNC Plus.